Imagine a young prince raised in the shadow of war, a land torn between ambition, betrayal, and the constant threat of invasion. A boy who watched empires rise and fall, and understood early that survival demanded strength of mind, of heart, and of steel. His childhood was shaped by conflict but not defined by fear. Instead, it taught him to observe, to listen, to learn, and to prepare. This is the journey of a leader who rose not through desire for power, but through responsibility. This is the rise of the Warrior Sultan. Long before he claimed the throne, the world around him was already shifting. Rival states tested borders. Tribes competed for influence. Trade routes changed with every season. Armies marched across distant valleys, leaving uncertainty in their wake. The prince grew up watching generals debate strategies late into the night. He saw advisors whisper behind closed doors. He noticed how quickly alliances changed and how slowly trust returned. Every detail shaped his mind. Every conflict shaped his future. From the age when most children learned games, he learned maps. He understood geography not as lines on parchment, but as living spaces, places where people hoped, feared, and fought. His tutors taught him languages, politics, history, and diplomacy. His military instructors trained him to command, but they also taught him restraint. He studied past rulers whose empires collapsed because they acted too quickly, and others who failed because they acted too late. From these lessons, he developed the balance that would one day define his leadership. By his teenage years, his homeland was facing rising tension. To the west, a powerful coalition was expanding territory mile by mile. To the east, a feared warlord was destroying settlements and pushing his forces closer each season. Merchants struggled to keep routes open. Farmers prepared for shortages. Inside the palace, the council argued constantly. Some pushed for negotiations. Others demanded full-scale war. But the prince believed that before any action, unity had to be restored. Without unity, no plan could succeed. His rise began on a winter morning when smoke rose from the northern horizon. A series of raids hit border villages. Outposts were destroyed. Caravans disappeared. Survivors spoke of ambushes that seemed too coordinated to be random. While the council debated what these attacks meant, the prince traveled to the damaged regions himself. He walked through burnt homes, listened to grieving families, and studied the pattern of destruction. He noticed something the generals had missed. The attacks formed a ring, a systematic attempt to cut off supplies and isolate strongholds. It was a strategy designed to weaken the kingdom slowly. When he returned to the capital, he requested an emergency meeting. His presentation surprised every senior commander. He spoke with calm confidence, showing maps and evidence they could not ignore. The attacks were part of a larger plan. Something bigger was coming. For the first time, the council recognized his strategic mind. They approved his recommendations to reinforce the frontier with mobile defense units, strengthen alliances with nearby tribes, and overhaul the communication network. Within weeks, raids decreased. Supplies flowed again. Confidence returned. The prince's rise had quietly begun, but his test arrived sooner than expected. The warlord behind the raids launched a massive assault. Thousands marched toward the kingdom's northern border. Panic spread as families fled the countryside. The prince joined the defensive army not as a symbolic figure, but as a working strategist. He stood among commanders, studying terrain, predicting enemy movements, and planning countermeasures. He knew the enemy relied on speed, so he positioned his forces on strategic slopes where the terrain would slow the attackers. The first major battle lasted hours. Dust thickened the air. Soldiers fought desperately. Many expected the young prince to stay behind the lines, but he stayed where decisions were needed most. He issued precise comm orders, rotating units before they collapsed, shifting formations to protect weak points and keeping morale steady. By sunset, the enemy began retreating, not because the kingdom had overwhelming strength, but because the prince used discipline and patience to survive the assault. Word of his leadership spread quickly. People began to see him not merely as the heir, but as a commander with rare clarity. But the world around him continued shifting. A far larger empire to the south saw opportunity in the kingdom's vulnerable state. They believed they could pressure the kingdom into surrendering key trade routes. The prince understood that military response alone would not work. Diplomacy was needed. He personally traveled to neighboring states to negotiate alliances. Many leaders distrusted one another. Some doubted him. Others saw no benefit in cooperation. But he spoke with sincerity and logic, explaining how shared security would benefit all. Slowly, he built enough support to block the empire's advance. His influence expanded beyond his nation's borders. Then came the moment that changed everything. The king, his father, fell gravely ill. The court panicked. Enemies watched closely. Internal rivals whispered in secret. But in the midst of all this uncertainty, the council unanimously appointed the prince as acting ruler. He accepted because he understood the cost of refusing. Weeks later, when the king passed away, the responsibility became permanent. The prince ascended the throne as sultan. His rule began with immediate reforms. He restructured the military so commanders could respond faster without waiting for approval from the capital. He established academies for young warriors, so training included ethics, strategy, writing, and diplomacy, not just combat. He reorganized trade routes, improving the economy and securing resources. He demanded accountability from officials. Audits became routine. Corruption decreased. And gradually, people began to feel the change. Farmers felt safer. Merchants traveled farther. Tribal leaders reported fewer disputes. The foundation of a stronger kingdom was taking shape, but every rise brings challenge. 2 years into his reign, the greatest threat emerged. A coalition of foreign powers launched a massive invasion, believing the young sultan could not withstand combined pressure. Their armies marched toward the capital. People feared the worst. Some believed the kingdom would fall within weeks, but the sultan remained calm. He ordered civilians to move inside fortified walls. He rationed supplies fairly. He deployed scouts to track every movement of the approaching armies. Then he waited. When the siege began, the attackers expected a quick victory, but the sultan knew patience could be a weapon. Instead of meeting them in open battle, he relied on controlled resistance. He instructed his troops to conserve strength. He refused to be drawn into traps. Days turned into weeks. Frustration grew among the invaders. Their supplies ran low. Their coordination weakened. And when the moment was right, the sultan launched a coordinated counterstrike at dawn. His troops emerged from 3 directions, catching the enemy off guard. The invaders retreated. The siege collapsed. The capital survived. And the legend of the Warrior Sultan spread across regions. His rise matters for many reasons. Not because he won battles, but because of the principles behind those victories. He believed strategy mattered more than brute force. He believed unity created stability. He believed leaders must listen before acting. He believed strength meant serving others, not dominating them. His leadership showed that discipline, not fear, maintains peace. And it showed that preparation, not impulse, wins wars. The legacy of the Warrior Sultan endures because he reshaped his world through balance. He strengthened borders without provoking conflict. He built alliances without sacrificing independence. He developed warriors who valued knowledge as much as skill. He guided a nation through uncertainty not by demanding loyalty, but by earning it. His rise reminds us that real leadership forms in difficult moments. When decisions carry weight and mistakes carry consequences, the young prince who once walked through ruined villages grew into a ruler capable of protecting an entire kingdom. He faced conflict, pressure, and ambition from every direction. Yet he rose with clarity, discipline, and purpose. His journey teaches that true power is not found in crowns or weapons, but in responsibility. His life shows that a leader's greatest strength is the ability to stay calm when others panic, to think clearly when others react, and to stand firm when others hesitate. The Warrior Sultan did not rise alone. He rose with the support of his people, and he used his position not to rule over them, but to guide them toward safety and stability. His story continues to inspire because it shows what leadership can achieve when guided by patience, intelligence, and integrity. This is the rise of the Warrior Sultan, and this is why he is remembered.